Hello and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is episode 2 of season 2. Today is Monday, January the 5th, 2014. My name is Graham Perro, and with me, as always, are the usual suspects, Tyler Fitch and Melissa Daphne. Welcome to our second season covering the NLL. We have the Q&A app running, as we always do, so head to our, I think the easiest way is to get to our Google page, Google Plus page, that is, google.com/ and then plus sign and Addicted to Lacrosse. That should take us to our page, and then there'll be a link there for today's show, and then you can ask us some questions, and we will give you some answers. And whether or not they're any good, well, that's up to you, but they should be at least hopefully entertaining. We got a ton of stuff to talk about today, seeing as our last show was back in October, and a lot of stuff's happened since then. So I'm just going to go over a few of the, I guess, some roster changes to start with, and then we'll get into to some of the issues that we want to talk about, and then last week's games. First off, a couple of retirements, some fairly big names. I think we talked about Tracy Kelusky a while ago because he had retired nearer to the end of last season from the Philadelphia Wings, and he is now the defensive coach, oddly enough, of the Black Wolves. Ryan Ward also retired from the Philly Wings, longtime member of the Wings and the Edmonton Rush as well. And Scott Ranger, who I believe played his whole career in Calgary, but that's not true. I think he played bits of a season with San Jose way long time ago. He also retired. So good luck to those guys in their non-NLL careers. A bunch of players are not playing this season, and the list is actually kind of surprising, or has some pretty big names in it. In my personal opinion, the biggest one, Colin Doyle, is out for the season, captain of the Rock. I played in the Mann Cup, and I guess he injured I believe it was his shoulder there. So he's having rotator cuff surgery, and he's gone for the year. Curtis Knight is also, I thought he was just starting the season injured. It turns out he's out for the year as well. So Edmonton will be missing him. A couple of other players out due to work commitments. That would be Logan Schuss from Minnesota and Mike Grimes, also from Minnesota now. I'm not entirely sure what they do. I know a number of people have been missing because they're firefighters, and I guess the first year of being a firefighter, you're on call all the time, so you can't be traveling across the country playing lacrosse. And I get the feeling that that's what Logan Schuss is doing, but I can't say that for sure. And I don't know what Grimes does. But either way, they're both out for the year.
Grimes worked previously for BC Hydro, which for some reason in Canada means he worked for the electricity company instead of the water company. And I imagine that's what he's probably still continuing his career with. But he did move to Ontario over the summer. I'm surprised that he's out. I didn't expect it. If he is out for the season, then the stealth trade for Tyler Haas and somebody is just like a steal.
Yeah, that turned out to be it looked like a kind of a scary deal to begin with, losing Mike Grimes. But if you're losing Mike Grimes and not sending him to a division rival, well, I guess he wouldn't have been anyway with Minnesota. But yeah, it's working out pretty well for the stealth, particularly with how Tyler Haas played the other night. But we'll get to that. Other people out, Jeremy Noble has never played a game in the NLL, but he was the second overall draft pick with the Rochester Nighthawks. He is also out due to work commitments. There has been some talk that the Nighthawks might try to trade him to Colorado, which is where he lives, or possibly to Minnesota, which is where his brother Jason plays. But nothing's come of that so far. So I don't know what the odds of that happening are.
And that's his twin,
another big name,
which is funny.
It is his twin, you're right.
Apart in school, but they're twins.
Oh, that's odd.
Yeah.
And the other big name is Garrett Billings, also out for what we're told is at least 6 weeks. I've seen some rumors saying that it might be most of, if not the whole season as well. So that would suck big time for the Rock. So hopefully for us Rock fans, it's not much more than 6 weeks, but we'll have to see how that's going. I haven't heard any kind of announcements that way recently. And some bad news to cover. This past couple of months have been just brutal for the sport of lacrosse, with the number of people who have passed away. And we're not going to discuss them in any great detail here, but I wanted to at least mention them. Former NL Commissioner Jim Jennings, Rock GM Terry Sanderson, that was quite sudden. I believe he had a heart attack while on vacation, passed away 2 weeks later. Tucker Williams, the son of Sean Williams, which everybody rallied around last season with the whole Braver Than Brave campaign, made some improvements and then got gradually worse over the summer, and he passed away just before Christmas. Stealth Coast coach Chris Hall announced his retirement shortly after the end of last season. I guess he missed the whole, which season was it, 2012? Can't remember. I think it was 2012 he missed, entirely battling cancer, and then he was back the next year, seemingly as strong as ever. And then a couple of years later, not so much. So he took the summer to, or he retired near at the beginning of the summer, but I guess it just slowly got worse, and then just around Christmas he passed away as well. And then the most recent, Wendy Keenan, wife of Rush GM and coach Derek Keenan. Derek announced his withdrawal from this season just a month or two ago because he wanted to spend more time with his wife, and then she just passed away a little while ago. So our thoughts are with the families of all of those people, and we can hope that that's it for the next little while. So on to something a little more pleasant. We want to talk about the new streaming options. And there's a bunch of them. There's a couple in the States, there's a couple in Canada, there's TV deals here and there. I'm not even 100% sure of where they all are and what are available where. Melissa, I think you've done a little bit of looking into this, so I'll let you start.
Yeah, this change from the NL really impacted me. Last year we cut the cord, and so that meant we no longer have Altitude and the other sports channels, and it really didn't impact us with everything being on YouTube. We were able to watch almost all the games, and it was really nice. And now some of them are on ESPN. This week's Colorado Mammoth game was on Universal. I think Canada has TSN. And NLL is offering a streaming package. It appears it's going to be $7 per game, or you can stream 40 games for $30. But even if you're doing their streaming package, you don't have access to all the games. So it's really kind of complicated. And I heard from a few people who actually did try to utilize the package deal that there was nothing but issues pretty much the whole weekend, and they weren't able to access the games live at all. So I don't think it's off to a good start. It's definitely frustrating because it's not like you're paying for a better quality game or anything. We're still getting the same exact streams we've had for the past few years free. We just got to pay. So I know the games I watched on ESPN, we had a lot of issues with the stream. Universal is pretty good, but I don't know what you guys had as an experience, but everyone I've talked to so far really isn't liking the changes, and I know I am definitely one of them, because it's looking like I'm not going to be able to watch a majority of the games now that last season I could have. So I find that very frustrating.
Right. So the way I see the move off of YouTube is all the games last year on YouTube were through the Lacrosse network, so it's kind of a partnership with NLL. And over the summer, the Lacrosse network was sold, and I imagine that some part of that sale either made it not possible or the contract expired and they didn't renew. And if that was the case, that was a terrible decision by the league, because you could watch every game as a fan, and it was perfect. It really made it easy for people to come and find the sport and get into it. It's like, oh, you want to watch it? Go watch it for free on YouTube. It'll even be live. And now you have to find the game every week, and that's going to be a bummer for anybody trying to start watching now. I watched both games that were on the ESPN feed of Friday and Saturday, and I mean, I had no problems. I was actually watching it on the Apple TV, so it was doing all the streaming. I didn't have to go through the laptop or phone or anything and push it up there. It was pretty self-contained, and it worked fine. It was nice. I didn't even try to watch any of the other games because they were kind of all at the same time anyways. There's only one Friday and Saturday. They all kind of overlap, so I just held out for the one stealth game.
So you watched yours live, Tyler?
Yeah. So I watched my stealth game live. Actually, I watched half of that. It was one of my kids' birthdays on Saturday. So I watched half of it at a restaurant, and then I drove home and watched the second half on the Apple TV. So I did watch the first half on my phone on over the network, Verizon, and I didn't have any problems at all with the feed. So that's pretty cool. But I was right in the middle of an urban area, so it's easy to get a signal and watch it that way. I will pick up the paid package probably as soon as the stealth are on there, but I'm not going to pay to watch not my team. What I do, even though the stealth won't have games at $7 a pop, they might not have $30 worth of games, but I'm going to pay just $30 just to have it done. Hopefully they'll have it worked out. I haven't checked the forums to see if everybody was livid about it over the weekend or not. I bet they were. So I think the league's trying to do what they can. I think also when you have TSN or any sort of universal going for like real TV versus internet TV, the rights also get complicated, and it's good for a league to be on real TV, but it's hard for the fans who are used to historically just sitting down and watching everything. That's my thoughts. What about you, Graham?
I wonder if we as NLL fans have been spoiled over the last couple of years in the fact that we've had all the games available for free. And so there was never a question of, is this one on, is it not on? I think the fact that almost every game, I think there were a couple of exceptions once they had the Universal thing, where they said it's on Universal, so they took it off of YouTube. But for the most part, every game was available for free to everybody. And so we got kind of spoiled with that. And it's tough because when the games are on YouTube for free, people are saying, we need a TV deal, and then so that the games are accessible to everybody else. And then they get a TV deal, and part of the TV deal, I'm sure, it's the TV people that are putting these restrictions in place, saying, okay, if people are going to watch this game on TV, it better not be free on the internet, because we want people to watch our channels and see our commercials rather than watch it on YouTube. So you got to take it off YouTube. So they get a TV deal, take it off YouTube, and people complain about that too. So yeah, you can't really win. It was an awful lot easier, like you said, Tyler, to just point people at YouTube. Because I know I was talking to a couple of fans last year who'd come to their first lacrosse game going, hey, this is cool, where can I see more of it? And right away you just say youtube.com/TLN, I think it was. And every weekend there's games, and that's where you find them, and that's all there is to it. Whereas now it's, okay, well, some of the games are on TSN Go, and you may or may not get that. I'm a subscriber to TSN, and I pay for it as part of my cable bill, but my cable provider doesn't support TSN Go. So TSN isn't the problem there, it's my cable provider, whereas people that are on other cable providers can see it. So I don't get access to TSN Go right now. Some of the games are available on Universal, some of them on ESPN3, neither of which are any good to me. And then there's this NLL Live thing, which certainly had some glitches on Saturday. Now it's free for the first 3 weeks, so I guess the idea is that'll give us time to get all the glitches out, and then people aren't paying for it yet, so they can't yell at us for not having it working perfectly. So hopefully by the end of the 3 weeks I'll have that all cleared up, at which point I'll probably end up paying the $30. I'm lucky in the sense that I work for an American company, so when I have my VPN up, everybody thinks I'm in Philadelphia. So if I need to be in the US, I put the VPN up and watch it that way. If I need to be in Canada, I shut the VPN down and I'm back in Canada again. So I should be able to watch either way. If it's true that once you've paid your $30, you still have to pay $7 to watch archive games, that's insane. Yeah, that's gonna tick a lot of people off. So that's kind of what it looks like, and even the fact that it's free now. Somebody, I don't remember if it was on Twitter or on the message boards or somewhere, was saying that they were charged $7 to watch one of the games from this past weekend a day later. And yeah, that's no good for anybody, and I can't see people paying that.
Yeah, when I went to watch one of the NLL games on NL.com, it said it was going to be $7. So, and it didn't even encourage me, hey, we have the package deal, why don't you do that? So I didn't even know that they were doing any of them free live. I only have been able to do the archive. So it definitely sounds like it's going to be a frustrating season in many ways for fans trying to watch. I think just part of it is because you just don't even know where to go. I know the Mammoth fans were complaining a lot Saturday night because the Universal feed wasn't working or they couldn't access it. I watched everything on Sunday, so that didn't impact me as much, but it does sound like some of these networks may not be up to snuff on how much traffic they're going to be bombarded with. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
The NLL has a page on NLL.com, I think it's where it is anyway, that lists all the games and where they're broadcasted in the US and where they're broadcasted in Canada. And so I've bookmarked that page, and I get the feeling I'm going to be going there a lot. Now I did watch one of the archive games from NLL Live, the Black Wolf Bandits game from Friday night. I didn't get to see live, but I watched it on Saturday afternoon, and there was no login, there was no enter your credit card number, there was no anything. It was just, here's the link, click the link, and there's the feed, and I watched most of that anyway. Now that said, they had some problems as well. They had issues with their audio. They had some background music playing for about the first 20 minutes or so that was much louder than the announcer, so that was basically unwatchable. And then the feed just stopped part of the way through the third quarter. It just stopped, and that was the end of it. I couldn't see the fourth quarter at all. So it's a brand new service. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, in the first couple of weeks there's going to be glitches, there's going to be problems. Hopefully they will sort them out, and then by the time people actually start paying for it 2 or 3 weeks from now, they'll have solved all of those problems and everything will be lovely. But as you said, even if they get that all sorted out, trying to find individual games is just going to be a big mess, because in Canada it's different than in the US, and it's different week to week, and it's different based on what team it is, and there may or may not be blackouts involved, and that makes things even more complicated. So, yeah, I'm trying to be optimistic about it, but I don't know. So far, it's been okay, but we'll see how it goes going forward. I'm sure we will come back to this topic a number of times over the season. So let's get on to the games themselves. First game for the New England Black Wolves against the Buffalo Bandits, and I noticed that Buffalo is now the oldest team in the league, playing the newest team in the league, which used to be the oldest team in the league. So that's interesting. Like I said, I saw about half of this game, and I have to say I was more impressed with the Black Wolves than I expected to be. First of all, they had about 5,500 at Mohegan Sun, which was not bad. I was expecting less than that, actually, but so that's a pretty good number. Now I guess we'll have to see how many of those were free tickets or how many of those were comped because they're at a casino or whatever. Vancouver had over 5,000 at their first game last year as well, and then dropped to below 3,000 at the next game and never hit 4,000 again. So attendance at the one game doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's not a bad start.
They've got a long time to pump up that first game, and then they got to start going more week to week.
Yep. Um,
I know the announcer said that it was near capacity. Do either of you guys know how big this arena is that they were playing in? It looked pretty full.
I thought it was supposed to be more than the Stealth had, so over 6, like 7 or 8.
according to Wikipedia, it's 7,700.
Yeah, that's not bad for a home opener for a new team.
So I don't have a lot else to say about the game itself. Kevin Crowley I thought he looked pretty good. We've mentioned him in the past about how he was first overall draft pick and has turned into a pretty good but not awesome scorer. And I guess we were all kind of expecting bigger things from him. Now I think he had 8 or 9 points or something in that game, so not bad for game one. And we'll see if he really takes over ownership of that team going forward. Tyler, did you see this game?
Yeah, I was able to watch, I think, almost all the game. And it really surprised me to see New England come out like they did. They played a great game. They really don't have, like on defense, they have no big names, like indoor names that you can think of. A lot of Americans anchoring the team. Joel White's their captain now, which kind of surprised me because Brett Manny's been with the team for a few years longer, and he's got more indoor experience just by a couple years. But if you look at Joel White as a captain of your team and anchoring the defense, and he's a Syracuse American player he didn't grow up playing indoor. It's a very American team, and they came out and played a great game of indoor. Offensively, I think the biggest change from the last several years I saw in their man up. It was just a simple movement of they had 2 lefties, put the ball in the lefty stick, and the righties were just rotating in a circle constantly. And there's actual movement and attempts to get the ball into the middle and take some short shots instead of just taking everything from outside. That was something their offense, their fans in the forum have been wanting about for years, and they actually did it. I don't know if it's the change in venue or the change in personnel, probably a combination of both. And they put out a great effort. I don't know if it was the first game, rah, everything's new and awesome effort, or if they'll keep it up. They would surprise me if they keep it up because, again, like I said, you look at the roster and you don't really know who they all are except for Kevin Crowley and Evan Kirk now. He's had a couple good years in a row. But they put it together and had a great game. It was fun to watch. Very fun to watch. How about you, Melissa? Any thoughts on the game?
This was definitely, like you said, I didn't really know what to expect since we were watching the Black Wolves that were the Wings, but they're a new team, but they're the old team, and so you really didn't know what to expect. You don't know how much of that previous team is going to carry over and the issues that were there, but it really seemed like they had a fire lit under them. We did have some issues with the feed from ESPN. It was really choppy for us, and we had some weird audio issues and just weird glitches. So there was definitely parts that we ended up kind of missing. But overall, I thought the game was just really good. I thought that the Bandits fell apart a little bit. They kind of started letting their tempers get the best of them, and they just started making some kind of stupid mistakes. But I really did like the Black Holes, and I was way impressed with Evan Kirk. If he continues to play like he did in this game, I think he's going to have a really good season. He just stonewalled some shots that most goalies would have missed. And they were some really solid shots that you just knew was a goal, and nope, he actually blocked it. So I thought he just played really well. I'm looking forward to seeing how he does the rest of the season, whether he keeps it up. There was the Johnny Paulus goal in the third. He caught a rebound, off the glass, and he was falling backwards on his butt, and he scored. And That one was definitely kind of fun. I know I heard some people complaining about the orange backfield. That was definitely a surprise when I turn on the game and it's like, whoa, all you see is orange, which I gotta say I like the fact that it's not in front of the goalie. But that it was a little bit of a distraction. I don't know why they decided to do that, but it definitely stood out. But it was definitely a good game. It looked a lot like a first game of the season. A lot of mistakes, a lot of things that you probably hopefully you won't see in the next few months as we progress. But it looked like the Black Wolves might actually be gelling pretty well. It'll be interesting to see how they do against their next opponent. So the next game, Edmonton and Buffalo, I did not watch. Hopefully one of you guys did.
No, it looks like neither of us watched it either. So we guess we don't have an awful lot to say about that one, other than perhaps Buffalo thought New England would be an easier opponent than they ended up being, and so the fact that they lost kind of ticked them off. So they went back home and beat the Edmonton Rush of all teams without John Tavares. So as I think it was Marty O'Neill said in his Islandor column today, the Bandits were happy with the split for the weekend, but it certainly didn't happen the way they might have expected it to. I don't think an awful lot of people picked them to beat the Rush. So the team that started 14-0 last year is 0-1. Yeah, since I guess we don't have much more to say about that one, we can move on to the Toronto-Rochester game, which I guess you guys didn't see, but I did, or I watched most of it anyway. I did have the odd streaming problem with this one as well, so I missed bits here and there, but I did manage to see most of it. And I have to say I was happy as a Rock fan to see the Rock offense taking off as they did. Stephen LeBlanc looked really solid. He looked like he's ready to sort of take over Garrett Billings' role as kind of the de facto leader, offensive leader anyway. So he looked good. I was glad to see Rob Hellier continuing his strong play from last year. He had something like 25 points the year before and then 70 last year. So obviously a great season for him, but was it a one-time thing? Was it because he had people like Doyle and Billings passing to him all the time? Apparently not, because he had a really good game on Saturday as well. Josh Sanderson, in the first game since his father passed away, had 7 assists and also played a really strong game. So this was a big emotional win, especially since the Nighthawks were leading through the whole game. The Rocks tied it up a couple times, but Rochester would take the lead right back. The only lead the Rock had was the last 5 minutes of the game. So it was a good character come from behind win for the Rock. I'd have to say that Rochester's offense didn't really miss Johnny Powless, especially with the additions of Jordan Hall and Aaron Wilson. They were firing on all cylinders as well. Brandon Miller and Matt Vince both played reasonably well. Neither of them really stood on their head. But like you said, Melissa, for the first game of the year, it was a pretty strong outing from both teams. I know you guys didn't see this game, but any comments that you had on it?
It looks like it was a low shot game. I mean, just looking at some of the stats, shots on goal for Toronto was 48, Rochester 39. When you look at both of the other two games, they were above 50s. Well, I guess in the Buffalo-Edmonton game it was 50 and 40, but definitely seems like it was a more defensive game.
Yeah, another game I picked incorrectly. I mean, good close battle, but I would think Rochester raising the banner up, be pretty emotionally excited and ready to come out and play, and they kind of put it together for the whole game.
Yeah, it was a strong defensive game, and the additions of big guys like Brody Merrill and Jeff Gilbert and Brock Sorensen to the Rock defense certainly helped out there. Merrill had something like 15 loose balls. Brock Sorensen even scored a goal. So all good from the Rock point of view there as well. Next game is Colorado, Minnesota, and I didn't see this one at all. But just looking at the score sheet, this must have been one heck of an interesting game. Melissa, I'm guessing you watched this one.
I did watch this one. This one was on Universal, and this is the one I was mentioning that a lot of the fans were having a hard time finding on Saturday night, but I was fine on Sunday, and it streamed really well, so I was actually kind of happy about that. This was an odd game. As seems to be the case oftentimes, Mammoth were held scoreless in the first, and then they just kicked it into high gear in the fourth. But I don't know how much of that really is the Mammoth really kicking it into high gear. It seemed more like Minnesota stalled out. And they have a rookie goalie in Minnesota right now. And it seemed like it was starting to get to him a little bit. And so it seemed like he crumbled more. And then they score again, and he crumbled a little more. And so they kept, all of a sudden, they just went on the scoring streak at the end. That, I mean, they had 3 shorthanded goals in the fourth quarter, 4 on the night, and just like I was complaining about in reverse last season with the Mammoth, when you start having that many shorthanded goals in a game against your team, you really have to take a step back and wonder what in the world you're doing wrong, because you shouldn't be giving up that many shorthanded goals. But Minnie looked really tired, which seems surprising because I thought that they probably had a younger team that probably would have better conditioning. But in the fourth, it just seemed like they didn't have much left in the tank. Both goalies looked a little rough. They had some really great moments that they made some stops that were just wow. And then they had moments where it's like, okay, you're definitely shaking off some dust. But it was an interesting game. Jones had 5 goals, 2 assists, so he definitely had a big night. He had a hat trick in the first half. Pollock set personal records. He had his 200th goal, his 300th assist, and 500th point in his career. So that was a really big thing. He said that I think on the Mammoth website, they had a quote from him how he stated he didn't even think he'd be in the league long enough to reach these kind of milestones, and that he was really proud of making it. And it definitely it gives me a lot to ponder for the rest of the season, because the Mammoth have been so inconsistent the previous few seasons, and I don't know that I saw anything different in this game, but you still see that just all those components there that if they can get it to gel, have the potential of being really great. But I don't know what they're going to do this season, and this game definitely didn't give much indication of that. And I definitely keep looking at it as this was their first game of the season, but they're not playing any different than they did before. And I think if Minnesota wouldn't have gassed out, Minnesota would have taken this game easily. So it's going to be interesting to watch both teams.
Yeah, I think Colorado exceeded my expectations, or they just had a great night. But I think that their 3-headed coaching staff is a good fit for the team, and they put out a great effort to start the season. That they're worrying me now. Like they're gonna have a good season, because this is a great way to kind of build up your I don't know what word I'm looking for. Not mentality, but just the mental self that, like, hey, we got a good team. We're going to be able to go. And they'll take it out against anybody now.
You can't get much more inconsistent than 0 goals in the first quarter and 11 in the fourth. But it's probably much better for the Mammoth that they did it in that order than in the other order, so that they can look at themselves and look at their team and say, okay, we didn't have a great first half at all, or certainly a first quarter, but then we pulled it together and look, the fourth quarter we had. We can turn it around. We can pick it up. Even if we start slow, we can still pick it up. Now, as you said, Melissa, the other team kind of has to help in that respect, and by getting tired or not playing well. But it's still a bit of a confidence builder that they can recover from kind of a crappy period and have a couple of good ones after that. Fifth game of the weekend. This one was on TSN in Canada, so I actually got to see this on TV in high def. It was awesome. Well, I got to see the second half of it because I was watching the Rock game before that. As soon as the Rock game finished, then I went and watched the rest on TV. The rest of the Vancouver-Calgary game on TV, that is. And I turned it on just as Jeff Shattler scored the third of his natural hat trick within about 3 or 4 minutes in the second quarter. And Calgary just looked really strong, and thought, okay, well, not so much this game's over, but just as I suspected, Calgary's likely going to win this one. And then, holy crap, did things turn around. Tyler, I guess I'll turn this one over to you since this is your team.
Thanks. This one was amazing to watch because it was definitely Calgary coming out and showing the team that they were last season and took an early lead at home and were playing a great game. And then the Stealth started chipping away. And the oddest thing happened in the second quarter. The Stealth got, I think, 2 goals in a row late, like just about 2 minutes left, and made the score 7-9 in Calgary's favor. And then Poulin pulled himself. So Poulin, with a 2-goal lead and 2 minutes to go in the half, pulled himself for Sigliano. And that was an odd time. Usually the goalies, if they're not seeing it, they won't walk off until they're down or something like that. And he just, something happened, and he wasn't seeing the ball, and he's like, I can't do this, or you can't make up the guy's mind for him. But he walked and got a switch with 2 minutes, and Sigliano shut down for the rest of the half. And they brought Poulin back out to start the third. But I think as soon as Poulin walked, the mentality of the Stealth was, we got this. Like, we're not going to fear him the rest of the day. It doesn't matter who they put in there. We're just going to play hard, and we can get back in this. And they did. And they went on an 11-goal run in the middle of the game. Calgary was shut out for over 20 minutes, including the entire third quarter. And so the Stealth really asserted themselves. But even then, it wasn't. I didn't think until like 20 seconds were left in the game that it was safe. And they had a 4-goal lead. But the Calgary offense can all score. All 5 guys are threats. You have Jeff Snyder following up every goal with a face-off, and there's going to be a sense of make it, take it. So I didn't think at any point that the lead was safe. And it was incredible to watch that game. No, I was freaking out. It's like, wow, we really took it to them in the third, kind of trading goals in the fourth, and it's not over. We just got to wait, keep playing, and the Stealth did, and it was awesome. Dan Peralt's first game coaching in the NLL. He's been a junior A coach for a few years now. He did a great job. The Stealth bench was quite a bit different than it was in the past. Kevin Alexander was on the bench. He's been a Stealth coach for a few years, but hasn't been on the bench during games. Caleb Toth is a new offensive coach, and so he's on the bench. And then Art Webster was there as well. So 2 new coaches on the bench, 2 coaches from last year. Roster completely retooled. If you look at how they list everybody, they have more transition players than defensive players, and transition was a trouble spot for the Stealth in the last year. And this year this weekend, they were running. They got out and had a ton of transition goals. Ilya Gaich had 2, I think. Tyler Haas had 2. Burton had at least 1. Tyler Burton did, but his was one face-off. I know. They now have 5 Tylers on the team, which blows my mind. So I don't know how you end up with 5 Tylers on one team. It's really polite of them to get everybody in the league named Tyler after I stopped watching. Maybe they're trying to pull me back or stop attending. But yeah, so you got that, and I'm excited for the year. I don't think they're as great as the 18 goals they put up against the Roughnecks. I think they just had the perfect night for everything to work out. They were playing in afterwards, like in honor of Coach Chris Hall, who passed away. So they were heavily motivated, even for a road game, to come out and make a great statement, and they did. There's still some things to work out for sure. Johnny Palace had 3 assists, and he's the big hot hand, and just 3 assists. Trying to think of the reasons it could happen is A, he has the best defensive player on that side of the floor on him, so it's harder for him to score, or B, he still has to play with Lewis Ratcliffe, and the ball's never in Johnny's stick. And if I rewatched the second half when he had 2 assists there, and the ball was never in his stick. And so it's not so much that he's being guarded, it's that he doesn't have the ball. When he did have the ball, he was picking up the assist and helping the offense flow. Cliff Smith didn't play on that game. He was probably a healthy scratch, maybe sick, I don't know. Or maybe they're trying to see what they had with Caleb Wiles, but now maybe they're trying to see what they have with Lewis. And Lewis is 15 shots or something like that, and a goal, which was a fluky backhander after he didn't catch the pass. So maybe they sit. I thought they were going to try Caleb to see what they had before they cut him loose and brought Cliff back in, but maybe they are going to try Lewis and see what they had, and now they know they still have the same thing, and they'll cut him loose or sit him and play Cliff Smith as a lefty forward next game. That's just things I'm thinking about after the game. It was great to watch, super exciting, and good job, Stealth. Any thoughts from you two? Graham, you saw half of it.
I did, yeah. One thing that I don't know if surprised me, because I knew this going in, but Tyler Digby's a big guy, and Tyler Haas as well. Just watching these guys on the floor, they're just built and they're tall and they're just huge. So seeing them standing next to Johnny Powless, who I don't think is a little teeny guy, he's no Josh Sanders or anything, but standing next to Tyler Digby is going to make anybody look small. You mentioned interesting points about Mike Poulin. Basically, he pulled himself, or was pulled, I don't know which it is, but and then he went back in, and then he came back out again. He sort of did the swap a couple of times. And one thing about Poulin is he's usually really good at figuring out when he needs to be pulled or when he needs a bit of a breather. He'll pull himself out of a game. I don't think he even sits on the bench. I think he goes right to the locker room, whether he meditates, whether he pounds himself in the head with a stick, whether I don't know what he does in there, but he does something, comes out 5 minutes later, and he's a totally different guy. So he'll let in 3 goals in 5 minutes, pull himself out, come back in, and he's lights out for the next quarter or so. That didn't seem to happen in this game, so I'm not sure what the difference was there. And I agree with you, Tyler, about the fourth quarter there. Vancouver went on this huge run. They pulled up, what was their lead, 15-9, after being down 9-4. And it looked like they had the game in hand, but then of course Calgary came back, and Calgary just don't stop. They never give up. And when you see, Dobie zipping off the bench towards the net, somebody passed him, an outless pass up there, and he'll score on those. Curtis Dixon started diving all over the net, as he does, and he does that in the fourth quarter an awful lot more than in the first 2. So once that started happening and they started putting the ball in the net, I think Dixon had 2 and Sean Evans had 2, and you look at this Calgary team and you realize, it doesn't matter that Vancouver's just scored 11 in a row. This game is not over. And it was really exciting to watch. So I'm glad I was able to see at least part of that. So I guess that's it for the games of the week. We're a little short on time. We don't have a specific time limit, but we don't want to talk for too long. So let's take a look at some of the other topics we wanted to discuss. Melissa had some thoughts on the new NLL website.
It sucks. It's like regressed to 1990s. It's so much less user friendly, which is saying something, because the old site wasn't the most user friendly. It appears that they've reintegrated with Point Streak, and everything's very table based and very drop down menu. You can only select one item. It was very frustrating this weekend trying to pull up stats. They've changed the box score sheets. They're just not as easy to peruse. The site looks like it's from the 90s. So I don't know how much you guys have played around on it, but it's new. I would say it's very old with just a new wrapping.
I think their ability to break all the old links to like news stories was terrible, completely short-sighted. I don't know how you could possibly do that in an age when you've had articles posted for years. And I went to the forums an hour ago. First article I clicked on is a 404, which means the page doesn't load, it's gone. How can you post a news article from a month ago and then launch your new website and it's gone, and you don't account for that? It's just awful.
That's one of the most frustrating parts for me as well. And it's not like this is a new problem that nobody's seen before, that they say, oh, we just changed our website and suddenly all our old links are broken. Well, this has been a known problem for years. So, I mean, at any point when you're looking at revamping your website and changing where things go and changing the look of it and changing the URLs, surely to God, step number one is let's make sure all our old URLs still work. But
it's not even just a known problem, it's a solved problem. Everybody knows how to do this who is being paid to do it, and if they did it wrong, they got ripped off. Sorry, league, you got worked.
Yeah, so that's frustrating.
Website, bad SEO, bad user experience. Like Tyler said, you got ripped off. Sorry, Graham. Continue.
And as you said, Melissa, they were on Point Streak for a number of years. Then they went away from them and changed everything, and now they're back on Point Streak. So, yeah, the website just looks like it did, or certainly the box scores and stats and stuff just looks like it did 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, it's. I haven't done an awful lot of looking through the stats pages, but I mean, considering that's kind of what I do. I do have some scripts that download the stats from the website and sort of parse them and put them in a database and all that kind of thing. And that was easy for me because I had scripts that did it for the Point Streak stuff, and so I basically just had to dust those off and make a couple of changes, and I'm done. So I haven't really paid an awful lot of attention to it in detail, but it does look like a blast from the past, and all of these things just looking like they did 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, so now we've finished blasting the NLL for their website and their streaming. Let's get to some predictions for the year. Seeing as this is our first episode, that's kind of what you do at the beginning of the year. So we put together our predictions for not only the final standings for both the East and West divisions, but some of the major awards as well, MVP, defensive player transition, that sort of stuff. We have our predictions for last week's games and this week's games as well, so let's go over those, and since I'm already talking, I will start. Standings for the East Division. Given the fact that Toronto beat Rochester the other night, well, I'm still going with Rochester. I still think they're the team to beat in the East. Basically, the East is theirs to lose. The loss of Johnny Paulus doesn't seem to be that big an issue. First of all, Paulus was their 4th leading scorer last year, so it's not like they lost Cody Jamieson, which would be a significant difference, and not to say that Paulus is of no consequence at all. But they did replace them with Jordan Hall and Aaron Wilson. So I think the Nighthawks offense will be just fine. Thank you. So I'm going Rochester number 1, Buffalo number 2, Toronto number 3. They certainly improved their defense, and I think their transition on the Rock is as good as anybody's. The big question is the offense. I liked what I saw on Saturday night. Of course, the question is, that was one game. Can they pull that off for the next 18? Do they get Billings back at all? If they build up some kind of chemistry and then Billings comes back, what happens then? There's a bunch of question marks there, so I couldn't put them any higher than 3rd. 4th, I put Minnesota, and then 5th, New England. And the reason I put New England 5th was just because they're mostly the wing, or they're partially the wings. I'm not even mostly. I think more than half of the team has changed since last year. So they're kind of the wings who I believe were last in the East last year. But there's so many new names down there. I don't know if the new location will be a distraction or if it'll actually help them. Depends on the attendance, I suppose. But there were just too many question marks on New England, so I didn't really know what to do with them. So I picked them for last. In the West, Calgary and Edmonton are both sort of 1 and 1A, but I think I'm going to go with Calgary in number 1, Edmonton number 2. I put Colorado 3rd and Vancouver 4th. I do like what I saw from Vancouver in the Calgary game, but as you said, Tyler, I don't know if that was just one game where everything happened to gel, or if that's just what we can expect from the South this year, in which case 4th is way too low. But it looked like, I'm not sure what to make of Vancouver quite yet. So at this point, I had them 4th in the West. Tyler, you can go next. What do you see happening here?
All right. In the East, I have Rochester number 1. They did some tinkering, but they didn't really blow up the team that's won the last 3 titles. All the key pieces are still there, and at the end of the season, that regular season, they'll still be up top. Buffalo is my 2nd pick. They also didn't have a large number of changes, and they were kind of middle of the pack last year, ups and downs, like long losing streak right in the middle or something. But compared to everybody else, I thought they'll have a good season there. Toronto's 3rd, missing Billings and Doyle. They shouldn't beat the other 2 teams, even though they've already beat Rochester now. But throughout the course of the season, I see them sitting right in the middle. The defense is greatly improved, though. I forget about all the additions they have there. They'll be as good or better than last year. New England, I had it tough on the 4 and 5 between New England and Minnesota, but I ended up putting New England in my 4 spot, partially because of their effort on Friday, and the other piece is because Minnesota, the people they're missing are pretty key. So Minnesota's at number 5 when you lose the Rookie of the Year, and Mike Grimes is sitting out, who's supposed to be kind of one of your key defenders. Those are hard positions to just fill, and they didn't perform on Saturday, and that might be indicative of how the season's going to go for them. In the West, I like Calgary as number 1. Again, like Rochester, they really brought everybody back. The only change is bringing in Jeff Molesky, which makes them better than they were. So have all the pieces in place to make another great run. 2nd, I'm going with Vancouver, mostly because of what I saw on Saturday night. I got to cheat a little bit, and I don't think I would have put him at number 2 before this, but knowing what I know right now, I'm going and stick at number 2. 3rd is Colorado. They could easily take a number 2 spot from Vancouver. I'm really excited to see those teams play each other and see what happens. And then 4th, I have Edmonton. I mean, they were the best team in the league last year. but they don't have their coach this year. And I've seen the Stealth go from being the best team in the league in 2010 and 2011 to not having their coach, and they were the worst team in the league. And that Keenan is really key to, I think, keeping everything under control and on course for Edmonton. And also missing Robert Church, who was probably their number 2 offensive player on the team behind Mark Matthews. Maybe even he's number 1. He was incredibly important to their offense last year, and he's out for the year, so they'll be hurting from that position.
Church is playing this year. It's Curtis Knight that's out.
Oh, dang it. Knight. Okay. Sorry, I had my little blonde-headed shooting forwards mixed up, I think. So Curtis Knight. And Church is a new rookie, I guess. But Curtis Knight's out, and he was what I was thinking about. Thanks for correcting me. But he's the guy I was thinking about there that is out. Hugely important to their offense last season. So no coach, losing an offensive player in a highly competitive West can drop them all the way from 1st to 4th in my mind. All right, Melissa, on to you.
When it comes to the East, I swear I changed these like 9 times. I could not come to a concrete decision, and even looking at it now, I would still shuffle them up again. I think the only one I wouldn't change, I have Minnesota finishing last, and I think that's just because they're a team in so much upheaval. We know they're a young team because for salary cap issues, well, not necessarily cap, just salary issues, they did let go a lot of their talent, and there's just so much strife on that team. I think it's hard for them to really gel because there's just so many issues. So for them, I just have them in last place. But 1st through 4th, I shuffled and shuffled and shuffled. The current iteration, which since now I'm putting it on tape, is going to have to stay. I have Toronto in 1st, New England in 2nd, Buffalo in 3rd, and Rochester in 4th. And I don't know that I can justify why I put any of those teams in their spots other than the fact that I think it's going to be a hard-fought season in the East, just plain and simple. It was last season to some extent, and I think just any one of those teams has the potential to explode and take the division, and I just can't quite decide on who it's going to be. As Grant said about New England, you just don't know how much of the Wings team really did carry over. And we know Buffalo can be really strong, but they like to self-destruct. Part of why I did put Rochester a little bit lower is having watched the Stealth make very few changes and do really well and then kind of fall off. I kind of felt that since they didn't make that many changes, that they might actually have some issues this season. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But I will definitely say I'm not very confident on it. My East Coast picks at all. I just could not decide. In the West, I put Calgary at 1st, Edmonton at 2nd, Colorado at 3rd, and Vancouver at 4th. That was a little bit tough too, and a lot of it really was just based on last season. But as we all know in this league, anything can really happen, and just because a team was phenomenal last season doesn't mean that they won't finish in last place this season. So I think this season was a really hard one to pick any of that because you just didn't know, and it's really unfortunate that we really didn't get to see any of the preseason games or anything. I don't know how it was for some of the teams, but if it weren't for the Mammoth tweeting out about them, I don't think the Mammoth fans would have known there was even a single preseason game. So it would have been nice to actually see some of that just to see where teams were looking, even though that doesn't always have the most impact. But I definitely found it really hard to make my picks this year. So back to you, Graham.
Okay, let's go to the major awards that will be given out hopefully at the end of the year and not 3 months after the end of the year. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. I'll just go through mine quickly. MVP, I went with Dan Dawson, and I really considered going with Cody Jamieson again. Um, he was certainly one of the better players last year. If Garrett Billings had finished the season, he might have been up there as well. But for some reason, I decided to go with Dawson. Um, he played a really strong championship game. I think he was the MVP of the playoffs, despite missing one or I don't think it was MVP of the playoffs. I think it was MVP of the championship series. And despite the fact that he didn't actually play in game one, he was named MVP. So I guess that's how good he played in game 2 and 3. Um, but I can see Dawson having a really strong year with the kind of talent that he has playing around him in Rochester. Goaltender, Matt Vince would have been a solid choice for his 15th in a row or some crazy thing, but I'm going to go with Aaron Bold. Defensive player, Kyle Rubish is never a bad choice. Is he the kind of guy who's just going to keep winning this year in and year out? I don't know, but he'll be in the top couple of voting, I'm quite sure. Transition player, Jeremy Thompson's been one of my favorite players for a couple years. He's not going to lead the team in scoring, but he can score. He can pass. He can fight. He can take face-offs. He can run. He can do anything. So he's been one of the stronger transition players in my mind for a couple of years now. Rookie, his little brother Miles. I didn't see the game in Minnesota, but from everything I've heard, he played as well as was expected of him, and he was, despite the fact that he wasn't the number 1 overall pick. In fact, I think he was number 3. He was probably the most hyped rookie this year, even more than Ben McIntosh in Edmonton. Les Bartley Award. I went with Kurt Malowski. He's been one of the better coaches in the league for a couple of years and hasn't received this award. But, I mean, Calgary's been one of the stronger teams for many years. And I know when Dave Pym was running the team, I thought he was a lock for Coach of the Year, and he never got it either. So maybe they have something against Calgary in the offices there. But I'm going to go with Malowski for Coach of the Year. And GM of the Year, I almost went with Kurt Stiers because I think losing Johnny Powless is going to be tough. But the Powless trade itself was pretty decent, and then he went and got Jordan Hall, I think it was later the same day, and then picked up Aaron Wilson as well. So I think Stiers has done a very good job. But unless the Rock totally tank, I can see the sympathy vote, for lack of a better word, going for Terry Sanderson. So I'm going to go with T. Tyler, we'll go with you next.
All right, my MVP pick is, I think, the same as I had last year, hopefully, because Cody Jamieson. He's, again, coming off a summer where he won the Mann Cup and he's playing elite ball, and he can carry it on, and we'll see if he can repeat as MVP. Goaltender is hard to pick against Matt Vince, but I'm going to go with Tyler Richards, just because he has my name. Defensive player, Kyle Rubish. There's nobody in the league that's even built like him. Like, you talk about Tyler Digby, he's a forward and he's a big guy. But Rubish is bigger and thicker than Digby is. And he's in a class by himself, and it's his award to take as long as he wants. Transition player should have been last year's winner. Hopefully this year's winner is Jeremy Thompson. I agree with you. Hopefully he'll get that recognition. Miles Thompson, I remember, I think after the first week of training camp, the Swarm tweeted out something about like Miles Thompson is ready to go. And then the first game he has 3 goals, and so he's off to a great start. So I want to see Miles Thompson get the Rookie of the Year. Head coach, also going with Kurt Malowski for the Les Bartley Award. Got a lot of the same picks as you, Graham. If Calgary can win the West and basically win the regular season, like they should be capable of with the roster they have and the team that won the West. It'd be a good recognition for him. For GM, I'm going with Doug Locker here because he's made the moves to go out and retool the team to fix the problems from last year. And as a GM, I think that's kind of the recognition that should be rewarded. If you look at a GM like in Calgary who has one person on the roster changed, he shouldn't even be eligible. It's like you did nothing other than maintain the status quo. That's not making an effort to improve your situation greatly. Of course, they had a great roster. There's really no need to change. Steyer's made some moves. Terry Sanderson definitely improved the Rocks' defense from where it was before. But Locker made the most moves and the biggest moves. And if they pay off, he should be rewarded for making that effort. That's it for my picks. How about you, Melissa?
I find these hard to do every year. For MVP, I chose Mark Matthews. I think he didn't have quite as good of a season last season as everyone expected, but he still had a really good season. So I think this might just be his breakout year. For goaltender, Evan Kirk, like I said, and I watched him play in the game against Buffalo, he just had some really wow moments that make me think that this just might be his year. I mean, we've seen it time and time again that goalies fluctuate, and sometimes a good goalie just has a bad year, and sometimes a bad goalie has a great year, and then you got the guys that are in between. So I think if he plays like he potentially can and how he did on Friday, I think he actually could have a really good season. For defensive player, I picked Steve Priolo. I really don't have a reason for that. I think picking the defensive player is one of the harder ones because you have a lot of unsung heroes, I think. And so it can be really difficult because, as I had a few people even echo the statement, that the best defensive players, you don't notice them. But once you do notice them, you can't stop noticing them because they're just everywhere. And so I think that's why, for me, it makes it really hard to pick a defensive player, because if you don't watch every game from a team, you really don't see those true shining stars. So I find that just one of the most difficult ones to pick. For transition, I also went with Jeremy Thompson. I think he's just a top-notch player, and I think having Miles in the league is probably going to spur some competitiveness between the two brothers. Kind of, if you follow NFL back in the old days with Shannon and Sterling Sharp, I think if only one of them would have been in the league, they might not have done quite as well, just because they were so competitive with one another that it really spurred each other on. And so for rookie, I also chose a Thompson brother. I went with Miles. He had a big summer with the World Games, and just he's definitely had a lot of hype about him, and seeing him play, it's kind of hard to ignore that he might actually be really impactful this season, especially with the team he's playing on. For Les Bartley, I went with Dan Peralt, but I could have easily picked a coach from any of the teams. I did wonder if between this and the GM award, if they might do these posthumously, because I could see Chris Hall definitely getting the Les Bartley award. He had such an impact with Stealth and is very fond, considered very fondly in amongst the league. And I know every time I interacted with him, he was a really nice guy. But I went with Dan Peralt, and for general manager, it was kind of an eeny, meeny, miny, moe, and I just went with my top team and went with Mike Board. So there really wasn't a really good rationale for those. So back to you, Graham, for our weekly predictions.
Okay. We're way over how long we generally go, but it's first week of the year, so it's not a huge deal. So I'll just go kind of zip over the week one predictions that we made, which we probably should have done a show last week and talked about these predictions then, but we didn't, so let's just go over them now. Tyler and I made all the same picks for last week's games, and that means we're both tied for last place because we both went 1-4. We got the Colorado-Minnesota game right and got everything else wrong. Melissa is at 3-2 because she got New England correct. She got the Toronto game right, and she also got Colorado right. So everybody picked Edmonton, and we were all wrong, and everybody picked Calgary, and we were all wrong. So that's how that goes. So Melissa's 3-2. Me and Tyler are 1-4. Going into week 2, we only have 4 games this week. And it looks like, oh no, I was going to say me and Tyler have the same picks yet again. But we don't. Me and Melissa are also close, but not quite. Rochester, New England, I went with Rochester. New England played really well last week. I will certainly give them that, but I don't think the Nighthawks were too happy with the result of that game, and they will be out for vengeance next week. So I can see the Nighthawks taking that one. Calgary, Colorado. Again, Calgary wasn't too happy with the way they played. Now, scoring 14 goals isn't terrible, but allowing 11 in a row, I'm sure Coach Malowski had a couple of words to say about that. Minnesota, Edmonton, last year's best team versus last year's worst team. Is Edmonton this year's best team? Possibly not, but Minnesota might be the worst. I got to go with Edmonton on that one. Toronto, Vancouver, this one vexed me for a while. I want to go with Toronto because I'm a Rock fan, but I have to say I was very impressed with the way the Stealth played last week. And I'm hoping that the Rock offense that we saw in Rochester will be typical of them this year, but excuse me, it's only one game, so I'm going to give them a couple of weeks before I get really excited about the Rock offense quite yet. So I'm going to go with Vancouver on that one. Tyler, you were pretty close, but you can go over yours next.
Yeah, I picked Rochester beat New England. We'll either find out if New England is pretty legit or if it was a blip from opening night. I'm very interested to see how that game plays out. Colorado at Calgary, I'm going with Colorado there. They had a great finish to their game. Well, the Roughnecks had a rough second half in their game. So I can see Colorado winning this game. It would be a very close, super entertaining game in my mind. But I'm going to pick Colorado. Minnesota, Edmonton, I'm picking Edmonton. Like you said, it made me chuckle. Like Minnesota might be the worst. Until they prove otherwise, I'm going to have a hard time picking them in a game. And Toronto at Vancouver, it would be kind of another game for in memory of CH because it'll be the first home game, and Monday will be CH's memorial service. So there'll be a lot of emotions around Chris Hall. And Toronto has to travel cross country. I mean, they did it last year, lost Garrett Billings in the middle of the game, and still pretty handily beat the Stealth, or they beat the Stealth, I think it was handily. So it's the cross country thing isn't that bad, but it can weigh a team down, and so I'm going to put that as another thing in Vancouver's favor to win that game. How about you, Melissa?
I had looking at my picks, I'm kind of wondering if I did pick the way I want to, but with Rochester, New England, I went with Rochester. Part of me did want to go with New England based on how they played Friday, but I also think since this is going to be their home opener, I guess they actually did open this week, didn't they? Okay, scratch that. I'm thinking this was their home opener, so there was going to be a lot more pressure. Yeah, I don't have justification on that one. I said Rochester, and I think I could just as easily say New England. Calgary and Colorado, I'm going with Calgary. It is very, very nearly always a very tough battle between those two teams, and so I will be shocked if it doesn't go down to the wire or overtime. But I think Calgary loves to play spoiler, especially at the home opener. And so since Colorado has struggled at home a little bit, I think Calgary is just the stronger choice, especially since I'm not confident in my team yet. Minnesota and Edmonton, kind of like you said, Tyler, until Minnesota shows me otherwise, I'm going to pick whoever they're playing against as the winner. For Toronto and Vancouver, I went with Toronto. I feel like Vancouver was struggling at home last season, but I don't know if that's just I'm remembering incorrectly. I didn't really have a justifiable reason that's like, oh yeah, Toronto's going to win this one. I think Vancouver sometimes struggles to get started a little bit, just like some of the other teams do. But we'll go with Toronto.
Yeah, Stealth had a pretty bad home record last season, so you're not wrong there at all.
I think Vancouver just struggled everywhere last year.
Is that why they were in last place?
That was probably it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that ends one of probably the longest Addicted to Lacrosse shows ever, but we had a lot to cover, and we had a lot of fun talking about it. Hope you had a lot of fun listening to it. Our website is addictedtolacrosse.com, which is where all of our shows are archived, and this one will be up there in, I don't know, an hour or two, hopefully, when YouTube decides to upload it. If you want to contact us, there's a bunch of ways to do that. Feedback@addictedtolacrosse.com is our email address. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/laxpodcast. You can find us on Twitter at laxpodcast again. Yeah, and as I said earlier, our Google Plus page is google.com/+addictedtolacrosse, and that will take you to our Google Plus page as well. So that's it. This has been another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. For Tyler and Melissa, I'm Graham. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.